What's up everybody and welcome here to my Premier League predictions on this video. We are here for my Premier League predictions of Matchday 23 as we'll kick things off with the first matchup on TNT Sports. It's going to be West Ham United at 12:30 kickoff on Saturday and they take on against Sunderland. Big match of West Ham United. A big win from last week when West Ham beat Spurs 2-1 from a late goal from Callum Wilson. But now they play Sunderland. Sunderland are a better side compared to Spurs this season. Spurs are currently at 14th in the league. Not looking great in their side. But we are talking about Sunderland though. They are playing away from home against West Ham on Saturday at 12:30 kickoff. And West Ham United, the points now is only 4 points adrift, or they're 4 points adrift away from survival, where Forest are currently at. 5 points actually, 5 points, not 4, because they drew against Arsenal from last week. So 22 points versus a team who are currently 17th, 17 points so far in the Premiership. So a big gap of 5 points between Forest and West Ham. As for Sunderland, they're flying high. They are at the real top end of the table. Biggest surprise package in the Premier League. And they only a point below Newcastle now, move up to 8th place in the Premiership. And personally, as West Ham United are at home, and West Ham are now getting sort of form now after that win against Spurs on the weekend from last week, will be a very, very tough one, I think, to predict, because Sunderland, however, are very, very good, and they've been all good all season. But I'm going to go for a draw as my prediction, though, because West Ham will see that result over Spurs last week, that we need to try and fight against Forest now to try and survive this season. West Ham are in big trouble, though. Very, very big trouble they are. And they've got to pick up some points as well, especially from now till May. So I don't think West Ham will go and get a result, like a win, but I do think they might draw the game over Sunderland. So personally, in my prediction between the Hammers and Sunderland, I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw as my final score prediction on Saturday. Now we move on now to my score prediction for Burnley and Spurs for the weekend. Big matchup for Tottenham though. After losing to West Ham last week, they need to get a result over Burnley. Burnley are not great. Burnley, we all know they're going to be relegated this season. We know that as a matter of fact. They're at home though. Their last game at Turf Moor was a draw to Manchester United 2-2 a couple of weeks back. And they've got 14 points so far in the Premiership. They're only at least 8 points behind from Nottingham Forest. So they're in a very dangerous position, of course, in the relegation battle. But as for the Tottenham, though, losing to obviously West Ham from the last week and losing the game before that to Bournemouth, they are not looking great. And even, I think, a lot of Spurs fans are starting to turn on Thomas Frank, the manager for Tottenham, because you look at where they're currently at the moment, Spurs. They've got 27 points. They're only at least 10 points adrift away from the relegation zone where West Ham are currently at. And they are sort of in trouble, though, because they're not looking great. They're not in the top half of the table, though. Spurs are Spurs as always. Very Spurs are up every single time. But I do think that since they're playing Burnley, and since they lost to West Ham from last week, I do think their Spurs should get a result from this game. So my Premier League prediction for Burnley and Tottenham, I'm going to go for a 2-1 win for Tottenham though. I think Burnley will get a goal, I think, no matter what. I think they will get a goal for Burnley. I think they'll score. But I do think Tottenham will sneakily get the result, I think, in the bag. And I do think they'll pick up 30 points by the end of Matchday 23. So my score prediction will be 2-1 to Tottenham at Turf Moor on Saturday at 3 o'clock. Now my Premier League prediction between Fulham and Brighton on Saturday. Huge game on the cards for both sides. Fulham and Brighton, they are both average teams in the Premier League. You don't expect any of the two to probably pick up any wins out of each other at Craven Cottage, especially because Fulham are a very tough team to beat. So is Brighton as well. Very strong team also in the Premiership. They're both in even positions in the league. But if I've got to put a score prediction between Fulham and Brighton, I do think that these two teams will not pick up a win out of each other. I think this game will be very, very average. I'm going to go for a 0-0 draw, I think. I think there'll be nothing happening, I think, for Fulham and Brighton during the end of the matchup. I do think a draw will be a draw, and that's what I'm going to go for my prediction. So I'm going to go for a 0-0 draw, goalless between Fulham and Brighton. So I'm going to go for a 0-0 as my score prediction. Now my score prediction between Manchester City and Wolverhampton Wanderers. Huge game on the cards for Manchester City. We know how big they are as a team in terms of they're really challenging us now in the Premier League title race. Loss to Man United last week was a big, big blow for Man City. Also a big blow for us a little bit to draw to Forest though. But City, they've got Wolves at home. So I expect them to win the matchup, obviously, because they are bottom of the league for Wolves. We all know that Wolves are going to be down, I think, now to the Championship for next season. I think we know that they had some couple results they've had, drawing to Everton, drawing to Manchester United, winning 3-0 to West Ham, and they've been very, very good. They've been in terms of their form recently, but they are miles away from safety. And Man City, I'm not going to muck around over Wolves, personally. I do think that City will definitely want to pick up a win that game. So I'm going to go for a 3-0 win for City. I think City will win 3-0 in the game and they'll score 3 goals in the matchup. And I don't think Wolves will stand a chance over Man City. So I'm going to go for a 3-0 prediction for Man City to win the matchup by tomorrow. Now my official score prediction for half-5 kickoff between AFC Bournemouth and Liverpool live on Sky Sports. Huge game this is going to be between Bournemouth and Liverpool. For Liverpool, however, they're the away team in this game. Bournemouth are the home team. Big matchup for Liverpool though, because they're currently sitting in 4th place going into Matchday 23 on the weekend. For AFC Bournemouth, they are in a good position. Last result was a victory for Bournemouth, I believe so. In their last Premiership game, they won. And they obviously move up the table slightly. Or they drew, sorry, I apologise. They drew 1-1 to Brighton. Bit of a confusion. I've talked about the game before that. In fact, they did beat Spurs 3-2. But did pick up a big draw against Brighton on Monday Night Football from last week. And they are playing at home to Liverpool. 4th position they're currently at. Only 1 point clear from Manchester United though. And they have to try and beat Bournemouth because teams below them like Chelsea, Brentford, Newcastle, Sunderland as well, Everton are in that mix as well for challenging for the top 4 at this moment in time. So in my honest prediction between Bournemouth and Liverpool, and since Liverpool are away, since Liverpool obviously had draws and few draws recently with Liverpool, and also not picking up some biggest form for their side, I do think with Bournemouth obviously not picking up enough wins the last couple of weeks, only beating Spurs 3-2 from New Year's. Apart from that, I do think as the Bournemouth are playing at home tomorrow at the Vitality Stadium, I think Bournemouth might shock Liverpool, and I think Bournemouth will win 1-0. The reason why I think this, because I think that, Liverpool, a bit of a rocky team this season. I think after losing Jota, he passed away, and the club, their mindset's not thinking much about being a title contender side. They're not been the team as they were last season. We've seen that the last 23 games of the season. We know how they played poorly, and even Arne Slot was even a lot of speculation about him being sacked and whatnot. They weren't in the top 4 positions. They weren't around November, December time. They are still that sort of side. They've They've had some their blips as well, and I do think that Bournemouth are going to be at it this game. I think they're at home as well. Will be an excuse for Bournemouth to get a result. I think going to Vitality Stadium is a very tough place to go because, you know, the fans are going to be really against you as well at a smaller stadium like Bournemouth's Vitality. I do think that they're going to probably narrowly win that game. So even without Semenyo in the team no more, I do think Bournemouth could actually still do it. So I'm going to go for a 1-0 win, I think for Bournemouth. And I think the Cherries will pick up the big 3 points and they'll go up to 30 points by the end of Matchday 23. So I'm going to go for a 1-0 win for AFC Bournemouth. Now we move on now to Sunday because Brentford play against Nottingham Forest. 2 o'clock kickoff on Sky Sports. Huge game this is going to be for Brentford and also a huge game for Nottingham Forest because Forest, big draw over Arsenal from last week, 0-0. You know, nothing involved in that game. I think Forest played very, very good football, very defensive when they played us last week. We couldn't even score a goal against them. They've been very, very hard to beat at the back. And I think Sean Dyche knows how to play that sort of system, especially Arsenal. You know, they do. He knows how to play against Arsenal, not just win against them, but try and defend throughout the whole game. And they've done that very nicely against the league leaders of us during the game from last week. But they do play Brentford, though. Brentford are in a very good position, challenging for the top 4. They're around those European places. They've got a manager is very, very, let's say, not as huge name as manager of any clubs. He's actually a guy who used to play football for Wolves and for West Brom and Blackburn, set-piece coach. Came in as manager to be promoted as manager after when Thomas Frank left. Speculations that he might, you know, bring this team to go down and relegated. But he's proven the odds. Over-proven the odds. And he's played the exact same system what Thomas Frank left when he left Brentford during last summer. In my honest perspective about Brentford in terms of this game over Forest, and since Forest, of course, did very, very well against us, drawing 0-0, I do fancy Brentford do pick up 3 points, I think, because I do see something about Brentford might pick up a massive, massive win. And I do really, really would not surprise me if they do because they're at home. They play a good system. You know, their data's pretty good. You know, how they analyse, you know, the players they've got, the scouting they have in their system of Brentford is nicely done. You know, having these guys from lower league football come up. Even they scout these players and buy these players very, very quickly before other teams go after them. And Brentford are very, very smart about that. And I'm not talking about, you know, I'm talking about them throughout the whole, you know, time in the Premier League. They're always smart getting these players before everybody else. And I do think with Brentford at home as well, since Forest are not looking great in the league as well, it's just Brentford now challenging in that top 4 race. I do think Brentford might pick up a massive surprise on Sunday. So I'm going to go for a 1-0 win for Brentford as my score prediction going into Sunday's match. So 1-0 Brentford as my official score prediction. Now we move on now to Palace and Chelsea. Palace are in a massive problem now. I said this before last week. Oliver Glasner is leaving at the end of the season. They are now considering of sacking him, by the way, before the end of the season due to the fact that his loyalty is not committed to Palace. And I think Steve Parish was even talking about sacking Oliver Glasner just before the end of the season, any time now maybe so. But a big, real hard January they've had, you know, getting knocked out the FA Cup. Losing Mark Gahey, their captain as well, to go to join Man City. It's a big blow for them as well. Especially money talks in the top tier of English football. The top 6 bully the smaller teams on buying their best players. And they've done that twice now this season. Eze going to Arsenal. Gahey going to Man City. Palace have been, let's say, lost a little bit of the dressing room a little bit now. And I've seen that now. That is getting a bit too much, I think, for Oliver Glasner. I think that's why he's leaving at the end of the season, because you're letting these players leave and you're not really backing him as well. And that's what I've seen about Palace so far during this season and even last season. You can't... Oliver Glasner is a very good manager, but he's getting his 2 hands tied behind his back. And the players that he's actually made them very very top star players in their team, they now somehow leave. And I think Mateta, I think he's been talking about leaving Palace as well. So they're in a massive crisis talk now, Palace, on losing a few players as well. Chelsea are the team are travelling to Selhurst Park, and they've had a very different transition in January. Obviously, Enzo Maresca resigned in New Year's. They're bringing Liam Rosenior from Strasbourg. Very unknown into management in the Premier League, but he has done okay, and he's done extremely well in the last, 2 games out of 3. You know, obviously losing to us in the Carabao Cup was a bit disappointing, but Chelsea picked up a massive win over Brentford in Liam Rosenior's first home game as manager in the Premier League for Chelsea. But a massive win over Arsenal in the massive defeat over Arsenal in the Carabao Cup semi-finals as well was a big defeat. And even they did very, very well in his first ever managerial appearance when they actually lost to Charlton Flegg as well. Obviously, Charlton Flegg got smashed by Chelsea 5-1. So he has got 2 wins out of 1 out of the 3 games. And I have seen progress in Chelsea's team during the Brentford game. And I feel with Chelsea now having a little bit of a boost about them a little bit and having a new manager bounce back as well, I do fancy them to pick up the result over Palace on Sunday. So personally, I'm going to go for a 2-0 win, I think, for Chelsea. I think Chelsea will be very, 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 very at it this game. I think they're going to be very, very smart about this game. And I do think they're going to go and somehow pick up the massive 3 points. So I'll probably say that Chelsea win 2-0 as my official score prediction. I do think that Chelsea will obviously give the manager, give a bit of a bounce, obviously a managerial bounce, getting results. And I've seen that about them. Maybe the Carabao Cup was a little bit too much, I think, for them. But in the Premier League and also in the FA Cup, they're delivering that a little bit now. So I am going to go for a win for Chelsea, though. So my official prediction will be 2-0 down at South London for Sunday. Now my score prediction between Newcastle and Villa. Both sides, Villa are a better side compared to Newcastle this season. They are really challenging, obviously not just challenging for the Champions League, but trying to challenge into that top 2, or even challenging us for the Premier League title. Villa, they're still in the title race, but I don't take Villa very, very serious compared to Man City, though. I think Man City is a team that to be aware of from now until the end of the season. But Aston Villa, you've got to still involve them in the mix, of course, to be in this title picture. They do play away from home, though, against Newcastle United. Newcastle are in European football, qualification of European football at the moment. They're currently in 8th position, only on goal difference above their rival Sunderland. They had a bit of a blippy season, not a great season this season compared to last season. Doing okay in the Champions League, though. They're picking up form in that. Still got a lot of competition to play for, especially the Carabao Cup. They lost to Man City 2-0 in the first leg. They got through to the FA Cup 4th round to Bournemouth from penalty shootout against Bournemouth by Ramsdale's saves as well. Kept them in the competition. They've still got lots of competition to play for as well. And even injuries and fatigueness really does affect the Newcastle team recently during the first half of the season. That's why Newcastle have not picked up enough points compared to what they had last season. And that's why Newcastle, at this moment in time, are not anywhere in that top 4 position. They are in that race, though, because they're only at least 3 or 4 points away from Liverpool. But they're still having their blips as well. Villa, however, they're a good side. I would say that they'll probably go and get a result over Newcastle away from home. But I don't think that's going to happen, though. Because Newcastle, on their day, especially at home as well, they're going to pick up something over anybody in the league. I know they lost to us 2-1 at St James's Park Stadium way back in September. But Villa had their time. They've actually lost, didn't they, in their last league game? They did lose to Everton 1-0 away from home last week. And maybe I do see Newcastle may even put the pressure on Villa in this game. Especially they're at home as well. and especially Newcastle are also in a big race for challenging for the UEFA Champions League competition for next season. So I wouldn't say that Villa will win the game, but I'm going to go for a draw. I think personally that might be enough. I think a point between Newcastle and Villa. So personally, I'd say that the game will come down to a draw between the Geordies and also the Villains. So 1-1 is my official score prediction between Newcastle and Villa, and that's my official prediction for the end of Matchday 23. Now the big game. It's Arsenal versus Manchester United. Michael Carrick, big bounce for him as interim manager for Man United now. Man United do not need to worry about the FA Cup. Do not need to worry about the League Cup. Obviously, the European football, they're out of it anyways during this season. All they've got to look forward to now is only these 20-odd games of play of the Premier League season. That's what Michael Carrick's thinking about. He's thinking about getting his team to qualify for the UEFA Champions League for next season. But big win last week in Carrick's first game in charge. 2-0 against Man City from last week. Big result at Old Trafford. But they do play Arsenal, the league leaders of the Premier League. And we were shocking last week not to pick up any wins in the Premier League over Forest. We drew 0-0. And you cannot do that in the Premier League. If we draw and if City win on Matchday 23, we should be a little bit worried a little bit thinking about it a little bit more, because we know that draw, if we do draw to United on Sunday and Man City win against Wolves, then the points will be a little bit more, 4 points between City and Arsenal. And that'll also mean that they're getting more closer towards us. And we cannot really afford that at all. But our home form's been great this season. We've been good at home all season. Very, very good. We've been on the ball throughout at home this season. We only lost 2 games this season away from home. Our home form is brilliant. Our away form, however, is dropping points. And only losing 2 games throughout the whole season, though. But apart from that, they're not the best. They're not the best when it comes to away from home. At home at the Emirates, we know we can get the job done. Especially at home, we can do it. And we have got enough players fit, especially for this matchup over Manchester United. I feel Man United will definitely turn up and really play well against us. I do think Michael Carrick will really install Man United into a real stronger side going into this game against us at the Emirates. But I do think that we have got more of an edge compared to Manchester United due to the fact that we need to win the league this season. And I do think United will pick up a goal against us, but I don't think they will beat us. I do think Arsenal will win 2-1 as my official score prediction. I'm going 2-1 to Arsenal. I do think United will get a goal because Michael Carrick, he has installed them into, scoring goals and even United players now trying to play under him, trying to play for him. And I've seen that over Man City last week. So I do expect them to score at the Emirates. But I do think we'll score 2 goals against Man United and win the game. And we'll keep ourselves top of the league, only 7 points clear from Man City. So I'm going to go for a 2-1 win for Arsenal as my score prediction. Now we move on now to my last score prediction at the end of Matchday 23. Is Everton versus Leeds United. What I've seen about Everton so far this season, Everton's not anywhere in a relegation battle. Everton's more closer to the top 4 as they are round the bottom, obviously. The points are so ridiculous now. There's only at least 15 points between Everton and West Ham United. 15 points gap is a lot. You look where Everton currently at now, between Liverpool, 4 points between each other though. They've still got a chance to be anywhere in the European places under David Moyes. And I've seen how David Moyes plays his football. He's not a very great manager when it comes down to like being a world-class manager. He's not a world-class manager, but he's a very old-school, modernist manager, very modern in the game. And he's been in the game for 20 years, and he knows how to keep teams sustainable. He did that with West Ham United to keep them in the league, make them a top 10 side, qualify for Europa Leagues every single year, won the Conference League as well under West Ham. For Everton, I've seen him really picking Everton up the table, really, making good ideas and applying good ideas and stopping teams from beating them. And I've seen that a lot. And I've seen they've been probably the better side they've been this season compared to the last 4 seasons. And even the biggest problem about Everton now, going into Monday Night Football, that Jack Grealish will not be playing this game because he's out injured. And that might be a big blow for Everton, because they do rely on Jack Grealish a lot, because he's a great assist player in the Everton team. Only on loan from Man City, though. But he's picked up a knock injury he has now. So there won't be no Jack Grealish on Monday Night Football. But Leeds, however, the only loss within the last 5 games was Newcastle United 4-3 away from home, though. Big win against Fulham last week. I didn't expect Leeds to go and beat Fulham at home. I thought it'd be a draw that game, because I think Fulham do know how they play against Leeds. But Leeds really hold out this 1-0 victory over Fulham. But with Leeds United, they have not lost many games during this New Year period, or this halfway through period. They've been very good. Even Christmas, they were very good. And that was the biggest breaking point for Leeds. They were very, let's say, brave they've been, in moments in games, how to pass the ball to each other, how to score in certain moments as well. Really fighting down the bottom end of the table, Leeds United. I've seen they've been picking up points left, right and centre. It'll not be pretty football. I don't expect Leeds to win every single game, but I expect them to probably see them now getting draws and maybe wins, maybe a lucky loss now, maybe. And if Leeds end up probably picking up a couple wins, they could be in the mix of the top 10. Because I do see that Leeds are not stopping from winning games or drawing games. They've been picking up points every single time. All they've got to do now is to make sure they win a few games and teams above them to lose games. If they can do that, they can probably move up the table very easily. But in this matchup for Monday, though, between Leeds and Everton, I do think that the game will come down to a draw. I don't think there'd be any goals, between Everton and Leeds United. I think it'd be a draw, 0-0. I don't think with Everton, with no Jack Grealish, I don't see Everton doing anything in the game. I think they'll probably be a little bit, having their moments to try and score maybe in the game. Try and maybe go 1-0 up, maybe, but VAR might give them a disallowed goal. Maybe they might probably get a lucky win in the end, maybe so. Or Leeds might get a lucky win away from home. Not necessarily. I think Leeds probably don't win away from home mostly. Especially Everton, I think they're probably more likely they'll probably draw that game, I think, personally, for both sides. Because I think both sides are very average in terms of their stats in results recently. So I'm going to go for a 0-0 draw. I don't think there'll be any goals between Everton and Leeds. So in my official prediction, I think the score's going to be 0-0. 0-0 goalless between Everton and Leeds. And that's my official score prediction between the Toffees and Leeds for the game on Monday. And that's my official predictions for Matchday 23. And that's all we have time for Matchday 23 of the Premier League predictions. And if you like this video, go and give my video a subscribe and give my video a like and comment down below who do you reckon your score predictions will be for this weekend on Matchday 23. Thank you all for watching. Have a good one. Peace out.